A lot of people think that this bottle is a competitor to Blanton's, but I think 100 to 93 proof isn't a fair fight. Let's let this pick on somebody its own size. Stay tuned after the break and we'll talk about it. So this is John J. Bowman Single Barrel. It is another Sazerac product. It is 100 proof, and a lot of people think that it is a competitor to Blanton's. I just think that 100 proof to 93 proof is a huge jump. And I think that specifically that 93 proof single barrel Blanton's is intended to be a smooth, easy sipper, whereas this is not. So I don't think this is a fair fight. But this is Blanton's Gold. Blanton's Gold is 103 proof, so it is a 3 proof swing, and it is a bit more expensive. It is about $125, $130. This one is a store pick. I think it was $125. And for that, it should be much more expensive and therefore better, right? We're going to find out today. But like we've been trying to do all year, we are doing all of our blinds, not just head-to-head, but with a control. And I haven't reviewed Rock Hill Farms yet, so we're going to do a Rock Hill Farms in here blind. It is also Mashbill 2, like the Blanton's. It has an MSRP of $50, and you will most likely never see it at that, even though that's how much I bought this one for, because it was in a lottery. Strictly MSRP, the Blanton's Gold should be much better than both of these other bottles, right? We're giving the John J. Bowman a chance to shine. It should beat a 93 proof easy sipper that is blended to be a great bottle for beginners or for those who aren't necessarily into whiskey. I think it's a luxury bourbon. I think it's a luxury spirit, not necessarily a luxury bourbon. So the John J. Bowman should beat that. Will it beat these other two, though, who are closer to its proof and not necessarily for beginners? That's what we're going to find out in this episode. I've got all 3 Glens here already poured up. They have a letter on the bottom, but they're chocolate Glens, so I can't see that. And then the bottles have a letter on the bottom. I have already mixed them up, but we're going to mix them up a little bit more here, just to be sure that I have no idea which one's which. I honestly don't even remember which order I poured them in because that was like 10 minutes ago and I have ADHD. So we're just going to go with it. We're going to see which one wins in this episode of Is This Better Than Blanton's? So, here we go. This is the first sample. It is on my left, your right, and we'll work from my left to right or your right to left. So, here we go. Cheers. There's some like grape soda on the nose of this one. A little bit of rye spice behind that. Definitely some like whipped cream. Kind of reminds me of like a grape soda float. Like if you made a root beer float, but with grape soda instead of root beer. There's like a little bit of cherry Twizzlers on the back end of the nose. This doesn't smell hot. I mean, none of these are over 105 proof. 103 Blanton's is the max. Ideally, they shouldn't smell very proofy, very ethanol-y. This one is no exception. I think it's fairly complex on the nose, and I like that so far. Let's see what it tastes like. Cheers. It's much more rye spice on the palate, like cherry and rye spice. Almost like a cherry cinnamon baked good of some sort, like a cherry cinnamon Danish or something like that. I don't know if that exists, but it sounds like it could. It has a good amount of leather and oak towards the back end of the palate and then on the finish. It tastes more towards that 105, 110 proof. It's a little bit thinner on the mouthfeel, on the consistency than I would like it to be, but it is tasty. Not sure if I have a guess which one this is yet, but it tastes like it could be a Mashbill 2 product from Buffalo Trace, which would be either the Rock Hill or the Blanton's. I'm going to take one last sip, not going to leave any this time, and we'll move on to the next sample. Next up, middle sample, sample 2, sample B, whatever you want to call it. Let's see what it smells like. All right, so that smells like straight up whipped cream. Maybe a little cake icing, a little bit of oak towards the end of that. Kind of gives it a bruleed sugar. It's a little light on the nose. Like there's not a whole lot going on. It's sweet, it's creamy, it's a little oaky. I don't even think there's a lot of like fruit on this. Did I even pour anything in this? There's definitely whiskey in there. There's no rye spice whatsoever. I mean, if I had to guess what the proof for this is off the nose, I would guess that it's like 95, maybe even 90. It's light. It's not quite there like I like it to be, but let's see what it tastes like. Cheers. It's like nutty. It's like nutty and like soda vibes, like a cream soda with some rye spice on the end and a little bit of nuttiness. This one's a little bit different. This is not quite what I was expecting in my mind from any of the three of these. Interested to see how the third one is, but this one is a little bit delicate for my taste. So we'll see what it ends up being. Yeah, even on the palate, it's like, if I had to compare that to, say, Jack Daniel's 10-year, I think Jack Daniel's 10 is bigger and bolder on the flavor at 3 less proof than either, well, 3 to 6. I think that would be less spicy, less intense. Although the finish is lingering with me, and it's definitely rye spice forward. So cleanse with some water and then get to the last sample. All right, last sample. Number 3, C, whatever you want to call it. That is like cake icing on a cherry flavored cake, whipped cream on a cherry pie, something like that. 0 ethanol whatsoever on the nose, so this one is much more like B, but it has a lot of big, bold flavors to it. Has maybe some grape. It definitely does not smell of ethanol. It's got definitely a cake or kind of pastry with whipped cream or icing of some sort on it. It smells, I think, the most complex of the three. Let's see what it tastes like. It starts very, very delicate, and then it's got like some cherry, a little bit of honeysuckle, and then like some rye spice towards the back end of that. The finish is not quite there, and it definitely, like, it on the palate does not taste like it's 100 proof. It drinks like it's 90. You could almost convince me this is a pick of Eagle Rare. It's not, but you could convince me of that. There's a little bit of ethanol like in the throat, like a Kentucky hug kind of going on. The nose is much more grape centric. It's getting spicier the more that I go, but it drinks quite delicate. This isn't going to blow out your palate. It's not going to burn you. At 100 proof, it shouldn't, but it should have a little something to it. The rye spice almost comes off like Coca-Cola type vibes. Like it's almost got like a Coke bite to it. The first one was kind of like a grape soda float. This one's kind of like a Coke float. I'm digging this one, and it is getting spicier as I go. The more I drink it, the more the flavor lingers, and it definitely has that rye spice. I have some decision making on my guesses, but we're going to finish this, and then we're going to talk about it. So all three are tasty. All three, I think I would be willing to pay $50 or more for. I don't know that there's any whiskey, even before, we get to the reveal, that I would pay $130 for here. So, number 1, I think, was what I think of as a Mashbill 2 whiskey. It had grape soda to it, whipped cream, and it tasted pretty good. It had the best nose, but fell a little flat on the palate. The second one was the one that I think doesn't fit. It was a little bit nutty. It was a little bit different. Like, it had some of the same things, but that nuttiness is not something that I normally get off of standard Buffalo Trace products, which would lean me towards maybe it's the John J. Bowman. The last one was, I think, the most lingering, the spiciest, the best finish, but the nose wasn't quite what I wanted it to be. Basically, I think my ranking is, I think I'm going to go 1, 3, 2. So I think the first glass was my favorite, and that might be solely on the nose, but I think the palate had the most immediate impact for me. The last two were kind of slow burners. Like, they were not quite what I was looking for. I think I'm looking for a whiskey that's a little bit less delicate and a little bit more bold and brash at this price point and at this proof point. And neither of these were really that. So I think I'm going 1, 3, and 2. As far as guesses, I think 1 is the Rock Hill Farms. There's something in that grape soda float that instantly reminded me of Rock Hill Farms. I think 2 is the John J. Bowman. I think 3 is the Blanton's. Let's see how wrong I was. All right, number 1 is B, And that is B for Blanton's. Turns out I like the Blanton's the most. Number 2 is A, which I did get correct. It is John J. Bowman. That means C is Rock Hill Farms, so I just flipped the Rock Hill and the Blanton's. They are the same mash bill from the same distillery, and they're both single barrels, so I think pretty easy to mix them up. This is kind of chalk, right? I think it should be Blanton's, Rock Hill Farms, John J. Bowman, for me especially, because I tend to like Buffalo Trace stuff, and the John J. Bowman just had a little bit of something different in it. I'm assuming it's probably from their pot still or their secondary distilling process. I don't think the difference is that big that when you add the $125 price into it, that it's worth 2 times the other ones, even though Rock Hill, you're not, unless you win a lottery or you know a person, you're not going to find it for MSRP of 50. But the John J. Bowman is actually getting harder to find. Even at the distillery, they've limited it to 1, and I think there have been pretty big periods of time that they haven't had any at the distillery. I know it floats around Jersey. I know it floats around Virginia. John J. Bowman is not better than Blanton's. I actually am somewhat surprised by this effect because I do really love Rock Hill Farms. Rock Hill Farms, for me, is one that was on my list to buy. I had tried it at a 717 Bourbon Society tasting at one point and really fell in love with it. Special thanks to my friend Vin for bringing that. It was really good, and I'd been hunting a bottle for a while, and I ended up winning a lottery to get it, so not mad about owning it. Would not probably buy it at $200, $250 secondary, and I definitely would not buy Blanton's Gold at secondary. I'm seeing John J. Bowman at about $100 secondary, which is about the price for Weller Antique, and I would not buy it over Weller Antique. That's just me. If you've had any of these 3, if you think that I'm wrong and that John J. Bowman should be compared to the 93 proof Blanton's, convince me that I'm wrong. That 100 proof point is just a different level. Even though it's only 7 proof, the bigger the proof difference, the more impact that it makes. And I don't think it's a competitor for standard Blanton's. But I think the Blanton's Gold kind of slots in pretty well above it. Drop a comment if you've had any of these, if you like any of these, if you just want to complain about not being able to find them. I totally get it. If you want to support the channel, check out our memberships. We do have a membership option here on YouTube. Check out our merch store. Link is in the description. We have hats, we have shirts, we have Glens, we have stickers. We have a limited edition Santa Glen and Mrs. Claus Glen shirts. They are super cool. They're flying off the shelves like hotcakes. If you like this content, check out our other videos. Please like and comment on this video and subscribe if you haven't already. And we hope you'll join us in drinking like a gentleman. Cheers. Bowman uses, I believe, a mix of Buffalo Trace's mash bills. It's definitely sourced from Buffalo Trace. They are owned by Sazerac as well, and I believe they get it and redistill it, but it would still have the yeast strain that Buffalo Trace uses, which then also gives it, I think, that fruity flavor.